Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Consumed by Grace podcast for the start of a new season. We're your hosts. I'm Pastor Henry.
And I'm Pastor Brooke, and we are so excited to start this new season talking all about the social principles of the United Methodist Church.
Yes, this is going to be a fun discussion, and this is going to be particularly fun because this season we're going to not just be discussing this ourselves, but we're going to be discussing this with some of our clergy friends from around the conference. And we are starting off with our good friend, Reverend Josh Hickman. Josh, just give a couple minutes, where you're serving and kind of how you got here.
Okay, I'm married to Rebecca. I've got two kids. One's in middle school, and that doesn't seem right. Should be illegal, I think.
It's a tough time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and another one that's not. It's probably a year away from middle school. Mm-hmm. So how did that happen? Mm-hmm. I'm the senior pastor at Coleman First United Methodist Church here in the Mid-Central District in the North Alabama Conference. I like to say that I'm the luckiest pastor in the North Alabama Conference, maybe except for these two over here. And I'm glad to be there. I've got an associate pastor, Trent Salter, and things are going real well in Coleman, but as you grow and as things change, you have to navigate that together. And so love what you guys do. Love this podcast. Love the idea of being consumed by grace.
Yes.
Man, we appreciate you coming on. So, Brooke and I, as we were talking about what to do with the upcoming season of the podcast, we were just talking about the world in which we live in. As everybody knows, this is just a really divisive time. And it's even a divisive time amongst Christians. Sadly, our two churches have experienced that in the last few years as well. And so we wanted to talk about, well, how do we do that? And one of the things that comes to mind, especially given a Methodist 101 class that Brooke and I are co-leading right now, Wesley talks about Scripture contains all things necessary for salvation. But there are a lot of things, a lot of issues that come up in our daily lives that Scripture doesn't necessarily talk about. And what are we to do with that? Into that void comes, at least in the United Methodist Church, comes the social principles. And to read a little bit from the preamble, the preface to the social principles, the United Methodist Church, including its predecessor bodies, has a long and rich history of concern for social justice. Its members have often taken forthright positions on controversial issues involving Christian principles. And we'll get into some of the more details of that. But the social principles are there to help us understand how do we as Christians live socially in our world.
Right. Like, what do we care about? And not only what do we care about, but what do we care about enough that we need to make bold claims about what it is.
That we want to take a stance on, that we want to have input on, and how do we do that?
Yeah. And I think it's really important. One of the things that I thought about in preparation for today is like, almost where does that grow out of? It's like, we have concern about these social issues, and I think a lot of attention gets put on those. And the thing that I think is maybe most important is to realize where that grows out of, which is this whole idea that we, the fundamental claim of all churches is Jesus is Lord. Well, if Jesus is Lord, then that means that how we live outside these walls is going to be affected and changed, not just for us and for ours, but for all people. And that's so wrapped up in the heart of who Wesley was in his time and who we strive to be today.
Yeah, absolutely. What the social principles are and what the social principles are not are an important thing to think about. Again, from the preface, the social principles are not church law. Instead, they represent the prayerful and earnest efforts of the General Conference, of the entire body worldwide of the United Methodist Church, to speak to issues in the contemporary world from a sound biblical and theological foundation in keeping with our best United Methodist traditions. And one of the things it says a little bit later is They challenge all members of the United Methodist Church to engage in deliberative reflection and encourage intentional dialogue between faith and practice. So, this is not church law. This is not, you have to do this. This is not elevating it to the same understanding of saying, as Josh says, Jesus is Lord, and these are prescriptive for how you have to live that out. But these are opportunities to challenge us to think about, how do we live in light of these factors going on in our world?
When I've had church members get heartburn about the social principles, it's because they fundamentally misunderstood what you just said, which is they think because we've got them written down that they're somehow magically church law, and they're not. And so, take a breath there. But at the same time, the call for all Christians, all of our people, all of our churches, to be called to reflect upon these things and how we engage and how we make contact with them is super important. And it's not to be downplayed. So it's one time you're going, not church law, but still needed to be reflected upon and maybe call us to respond and act accordingly. You know?
Well, and how do we get there, right? Like, we need to have difficult conversations. Somebody had a difficult conversation in order for it to have made it into our social principles, right? And so how do we engage with people to have these conversations and to say, my favorite thing to say is to give permission to. Give people permission to have these conversations.
Right.
So,
well, and give people permission to like or to agree or disagree too.
Sure.
Because I think one of the most freeing things we can do as pastors is to be like, it's okay if you don't love that. This is one of those things you get to have that level of like, I don't have to amen this. I don't have to, this doesn't have to totally light my fire, or whatever you want to say, however you want to describe that. It doesn't have to move the needle for you, but you also have to understand that your neighbor in your pew may feel very different and may have the opposite reaction. Maybe they may devote their life to it.
Yeah.
And so
if you're ready for Henry's standard silly reference that makes all
we've
of this sense,
been waiting.
You know what the social principles for United Methodist are? They are the Pirates Code from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
Okay.
Because do you remember what did you remember the Pirate Code from those movies?
Well, I remember the movies, but I don't know the code.
So that, they had this code that they all lived by. And more, so many times it's like, well, doesn't that go against the Pirate Code? Well, it's more like guidelines. Because it was one of those things where constantly throughout that movie they were saying, we live by the Pirate Code. Well,
except for this.
And they disagreed. And there's this famous scene in the last movie, right before the big dramatic fight scene, where these different pirate lords are arguing over them. And if you've ever watched General Conference, with the exception of this last one, which was a much better in spirit, so many times there's so much arguing and there's so much debating. It's because people are passionate about these things, and sometimes they disagree, and so sometimes these are guidelines that for us they are absolutely what we believe, and then sometimes they're like, okay, that's like a guideline, but man, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. And that is something that throughout the preamble, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, it says time and time again, we acknowledge that the church is a living body gathered from the many and diverse parts of the human community. Thus, unanimity of beliefs, opinion, and practice have never been the characteristic of the church from the beginning. And I think we forget that so much, because we want to be in a space where we all agree, we all get along about everything. But that's not real life. That's never been real life. There's an old commercial that Brooke and I have become really fond of saying, and it seems like it just comes up so regularly. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. We're going to disagree. Even amongst the three of us here, there is a fundamental difference in the three of us. And that's because one of us went to the wrong college.
That's right.
But we love him anyway.
We're not looking at anyone.
Yeah. That's right. And they like me even still.
We
Can
do.
you imagine that? That's a life consumed by grace is what that is.
There you
to pull it in.
We are watching this during, or we're recording this rather during college football season.
Yes.
Brooke and I are Alabama fans and alums. Josh is a Auburn alum, but you put those things. So no, but so I think it is. I'm glad you got us in this vein, Josh, because we're going to disagree on various different things. When you talk about going through the categories of, how do we approach the environment? How do we approach economics?
Yeah.
How do we approach voting? Different people in different parts of the community, in different parts of the country, different parts of the world are going to have different ideas on how to make things better.
Sure.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And all of this, some points of history in this is that these principles grew out of something that started way back in the early 1900s, which was our social creed, that grew out of a social issue, which was things like labor laws and trying to protect children who were working and had no protection and ensuring that people had a day off a week. I was listening to somebody who was doing a similar sort of podcast on this, and they said, "Hey, you like a day off a week? Think of Methodist because it is related to the work of our people in ensuring those kind of things happen." I remember being in seminary and my professor painting such a vivid picture of where this stems from, even in Wesley's own heart. Is like he looked at his church, the Church of England, and all of the extreme amounts of poverty and the indifference that the Church of England had with the social issues of the day, and especially the economic issues around poverty. And it just broke his heart, and it stirred in him this drive to be different and not just be someone that cared about church law and doctrine and discipline, but to also care about the social aspects of our shared work together in ministry. And so that's a big part of why I'm a United Methodist. I always have been, but when I really had to go and look at what do we think, what do we believe, is this who I am, I realized when I was having that conversation, I was in that particular place and time in my life and ministry because I was drawn to and cared about the social aspect of our ministry and caring for the poor, caring for those that experience injustice, and our responsibility to have a hand in that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and something that I love about the United Methodist Church, and I feel like I've said this on repeat over the last several years, but something that I do love about it is that we are a body of believers who don't agree on everything. I think you said this a minute ago, Henry, but I don't want to be a part of a group where everybody looks alike and prays alike and does exactly the same things every day and enjoys the exact same thing. Is that fun? Sure. Like I love college football. I love hanging out with people who also love college football. But I also want to know that I have a well-rounded view of our world. And so often that's very different than what's in my brain, right? And I've said this before. I was born and raised here. I've been to church here my whole life. I've never really gone outside of, my little bubble. And I think that's a dangerous way to live, right? Because then you only have your one perspective. So I think that's what I value so much about having these hard conversations. And they don't have to be hard, right? Like if you do it with the Spirit of Christ behind it, then it doesn't have to be a difficult or a hard conversation, but to bring that open mind to the table, to be willing to understand from somebody else's perspectives and to care about the things that Jesus cared about. I think that's why I value being a part of, the United Methodist Church so much.
And I think in setting this up, the principles give us a good way to have some of these conversations, because they talk about why they are necessary, and some of the reasons that it is so critical to have these and have these conversations well. One is, we believe that all people are created in God's image to live in covenant with God and the world, and we honor the dignity of all beings and affirm the goodness of life. That is critical, because if you do not value someone as a person, or if you do not value a people group as being made in God's image and worthy of the dignity of life, then you don't care about their opinion. You don't care about issues that affect them. But if we say that we believe that, then we've got to care. As you said earlier, Josh, it's not just about us in a building. It's not just about us and the people that are in the pews with us. It's about the people who are outside of these walls. It's about the people that are outside of these walls across the country, across the world. Because something that we might do, say a vote we cast, has an effect on them. And we need to wrestle with that fact.
Yeah. And we're called to love one another at the end of the day, right? Like we're all called to love one another. And in order to do that, and to do that well, we have to care about the things that we've listed here. Our hearts have to break for the injustices around the world, not just in our own backyards, but across the globe. So,
and it's interesting, and it's funny. I wouldn't have necessarily thought about this until recently. I'm part of a group that is doing a educational tour around Marshall County, where we are located, and we have a day that was looking at agriculture. And it was so interesting. If you look at the way that the agricultural system is set up in Marshall County, and you could probably say the thing for your home county, Josh, or Coleman, and the other surrounding counties, almost all of the farming is interdependent on one another. And if you removed a particular element of the farming community, most unlikely all of it would collapse in some shape, form, or fashion, because so much of it is dependent on others. And that's how we are as people, whether we want to realize that or not. We are dependent on one another in ways. We are dependent on the ones who think like us. We're dependent on the ones who don't think like us. And so we need to bring that to the table.
Yeah. You hit it real well in this last statement. With God's help, we pledge to share ministry and honor everyone's dignity, even when we disagree. We seek the mind of Christ and to follow God's will in all things. The idea there, and once again, we live in this particular moment in time, and I guess it maybe has been like this always, but it definitely feels like now we live in a world where everybody wants to gather with their team that agrees and thinks like them. But and there's a place for that. But at the same time, we've got to the importance of honoring everyone's dignity, even when we disagree, is so central to who we are, not just in the United Methodist Church, but as anybody who bears the name of Christ in the world. And once again, we just have to keep bringing that before ourselves. Even I, who want to look at that and think, well, yeah, that's fundamental to who I am, until I disagree with someone on this or that issue, and then all of a sudden I find myself maybe losing the sense of the dignity of that person, and I think that's how we've gotten kind of in the social situation that we're in this particular moment in time as a country and even as a global community. So I think it's really important. It's so easy, almost in the blink of an eye, to go from focusing and honoring someone's dignity to not. And that's why these things matter so much.
Absolutely. again, in the class we were leading, I particularly appreciate what our book said at one point in time, which was talking about where Methodists, particularly United Methodists, fit in with the grand scheme of believers. Says, there is no one Christian, there is no one church, there is no one denomination that can do all the ministry that needs to be done in this world. We have to work together. I remember the moment where that just really smacked me in the face. In seminary, during a particular chapel, we had a guest speaker by the name of Shane Claiborne. Y'all know him. Shane Claiborne is a Christian thinker and activist, and he's written several books. But he was talking about a time. Philadelphia, right? Pretty sure Philadelphia is where he lives and does ministry. He was meeting with a group of Christian leaders from a different denomination than his in Philadelphia, and it just came to a point where they realized, hey, this is just getting nowhere fast. And he said, hey, we get it. Like, we fundamentally disagree on everything, but can we still agree to partner? I believe at that point in time they were in a task force to end sex trafficking. And that particular leaders, and he did not name them, he said, well, they said, no, we're not going to have anything to do with any ministry you're a part of. And it's heartbreaking when we get to that point, when we say we will refuse to be in partnership with people because of this. Because serving God and loving our neighbor should go far beyond any opinion disagreement than we have.
Well, and I think that's so hard to wrap your mind around too, that we could. How do we fathom that we can't feed hungry people if we stand on opposite ends of the aisle? Or, I mean, name any issue, right? That we cannot do ministry together in the name of Christ, who we all claim to love and to know, that we so far disagree on an issue that we can't love people together. And that's such a sad state to be in. And it's hard. It's hard to be in a world that can be so separated on things that we can't continue to love and do ministry together.
You might even say it's what hurts the most.
Oh, there it is. There's two people.
Keep count. I think it's three.
I want to make sure that we put there should be
a tally
counter up there. I'm going to see if I can set him up for a third, because I just believe three's a holy number.
It's a great number.
And so, Henry, what we're talking about is it's that. That thing that saying that is attributed to Wesley. So much of the things that are they're quoted as Wesley's may not be exact quotes, but
Wesley adjacent.
You're a far better Wesleyan scholar than I am, probably. But Wesley had that whole thing about, if your heart is like mine, then take my hand, and that's what we're trying to get to, right? Is that we may disagree on some doctrinal discipline things, or even some practice and ministry things. However, our heart aligned with Christ should be the same, so that we can hold hands together across denominational lines, across party affiliation lines, even across, dare I say, college football lines. And so if we can do that, then we, I think, are modeling a great hope for the world, for the church, for the country, and even the world.
Yeah.
Funny enough, we actually talked about that Sunday night, that particular quote. And that is a quote from one of his sermons. And it's funny because he's quoting the most random passage from 2 Kings. But it's one of those you could even say he even kind of took it out of context a little bit to make his point. But that's absolutely right. John Wesley. There's another famous early Methodist. His name is George Whitefield. He's the one who, if not for him, Wesley would never have started field preaching and would have never become the circuit rider forerunner that he wound up becoming. But George Whitefield disagreed with Wesley on almost every theological point. And yet he said, again, something to the effect, but the disagreements that we have are not a hair's breadth difference between the two of us.
Right.
There's just so much more when we think about the fact that, as it says, we are grateful for God's forgiving and sanctifying love given to us and to all, and drawing us towards perfect love. And somebody used the thing one time. This is not an original idea of mine, but when you think about we're all being drawn towards God in perfect love, that means we all start from somewhere. If you think about like a triangle, we all start from somewhere different, and then we're all going towards God in love. That means there's some pretty significant differences where we start out, but we all should be being drawn towards. Not every difference that we have is going to go away by the time, as we think about it, as we're on the way to perfection, but we should be drawing close together and recognize that even if we are not on the same path, we're on parallel journeys together trying to serve God well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and if not for God's forgiving and sanctifying love, right, it would be very difficult for us to do such a thing. And so, we are grateful for that. So at the end of the day, our social principles are, what would you give me like a 2-second spiel? What's your on what social principles are?
2 seconds. They're readable.
They're readable.
No. So what the social principles are to me, at the end of the day, the social principles are something that is given to us to affirm, and challenge the way we interact with our communities, our country, and our world. They're there to give you, I think, some pause to think about how you go through your daily life. Are you living life in such a way that honors God and loves your neighbor? Again, you're going to disagree with some of their suggestions. You're going to say that that's not the best way to do it. But what I hope you do as you join with us this season, as you are hopefully taking these and reading them and giving them some thought, that you will be affirmed, but that you'll also be challenged in thinking how you live through life. That's what I think they're there for.
And once again, this is like the skill that I feel like we're quickly forgetting how to do. They're there to create thought and reflection amongst the people called Methodist. And so it doesn't mean we come down on the same side of whatever issue. It just says, hey, we feel strongly about this. And one such example was like that all people should have access to health care. Well, obviously, we're going to disagree about how we get to that destination. Good luck trying to get any group of people to come down and agree on that. But we still think that this is important, and it should drive our thought and our reflection as people in our particular corner of the world.
Absolutely. And we're never all going to agree on the same way. Josh and I might have polar opposite positions, especially when we start discussing this. But if I start walking his way,
there it is,
and he starts walking mine, then we can meet in the middle. We just need to find an old Georgia pine.
Yeah, got to have that old Georgia pine in there. It's so important.
Brooke has if you ever want to know what long-suffering, I don't know if it's patience or acceptance, but that is the look you're getting from Brooke right now.
Yes.
For all of those who listen to the podcast, this might be one to watch on YouTube just for
the face.
Just for that moment.
Zoom in. You can zoom in.
Don't zoom in. That'd be terrible. Oh, me. Well, this has been fun, you guys.
I told you he was going to get to 3. I knew he would.
Yes. Well, don't worry. I'm sure we'll have one more before we leave. And it will be exhausting is what it will be. But this is a fun conversation, and it sets us up really well for, what's to come after this. Because we're going to dive a little deeper into some important issues for us, and so we're excited to have those conversations with some of our friends. We're going to bring along the way.
Yes, Josh, thank you so much for being here, y'all. We appreciate you stopping by the Consumed by Grace podcast, which is in lots of places. But just in case you're interested in finding another, where can they find us, Brooke?
They can find us on all the places you can find podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. You can watch us there, and you'll see our fun song count ticker. We'll try to get that in on the video, and all the other places, all the other fun places that you can find. Probably places that we don't even know about.
Yes, gosh, we are so far behind at this point.
We don't. Yeah, we're gonna name the few.
We'll have to get your daughter or your kids. Y'all are old enough to be able to tell us all the things we don't know anymore. But we would also love if you would, if you're enjoying this, if you have any questions, drop us a comment. We'd love to talk with you. You can also shoot us an email. And if you're really enjoying this, share this and tell other people about our podcast.
Yep.
Y'all, this has been fun. We can't wait to spend the next little bit of time with you, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.